Hey guys, tonight we slip into dusty boots and climb a stairway carved in cold stone. Your hands graze rough walls, your breath echoes in the watchtower shaft, and far below, the barracks disappear into the mist. You've just been assigned to the dullest, most mind-numbing guard shift in the long and sleep-hazy history of the Great Wall of China. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. If you're still awake, let me know where you're listening from and what time it is there. It's oddly comforting to see just how many of us are wide-eyed at midnight, halfway across the world from each other. Now lower the lights, maybe settle into that familiar armchair, or just let the quiet fill the room. Let's ease, slowly and gently, into tonight's sleepy little tale. The sun is already slipping toward the western ridges as you arrive. Your relief says nothing. He just hands you a crooked spear, nods once, and disappears down the stone stairs without a backward glance. You're alone now, standing atop an uneven battlement that stretches out into forever in both directions. And this is your post, your view, your life, for the next gods know how long. This stretch of wall isn't the famous kind. No lantern-lit tourists, no dramatic mountain vistas, just the wind, the bricks, and you. And also that weird moss that keeps changing shape when you squint at it too long. You take a few tentative steps along the narrow walkway. Left foot, right foot, left foot again. The wall creaks under your boots, probably just age, not ghosts. Probably. Below, a vast plain stretches into the fog, dotted with stunted trees and nothing else. No armies, no villagers, not even bandits. Just emptiness that makes your thoughts echo back at you like you've shouted into a cave. The history books say you're here to defend the empire's northern boundary, but the only thing you're actively defending right now is your own will to stay awake. Mainstream fact, many garrisons on the Great Wall were left with minimal communication or supply lines. Messages arrived days late. Reinforcements were a rumor, and posts like yours, tucked in remote corners of Shanxi or Inner Mongolia, were known as silent bricks. Not for their construction, but for the eerie quiet that swallowed every sound. You lean on your spear. It wobbles. From behind you, the watchtower door swings open slightly in the wind, creaking like an old man's knees. You close it gently. It's not locked, it never locks. What would it even keep out? There's a small journal tucked into the corner of the window ledge, pages stiff with dust. Someone's old logbook. You flip through it. Most entries read the same, nothing to report. Weather windy, saw a bird. Sometimes nothing to report, rain. Once heard something, was wind, probably. It's comforting in a bleak sort of way. You're part of a grand tradition now. A long, unbroken lineage of people desperately trying to stay awake while nothing at all happens. Still, boredom has layers. First comes the physical kind, itchy armor, sore feet, the need to stretch in weird ways just to feel something. Then the mental kind. You start asking yourself strange questions. How many bricks are in this tower? Has anyone ever named one? Could I outrun an arrow if I zigzagged? Then comes the philosophical boredom. If no one ever attacks this section, does my guard duty still count? Am I protecting something? Or just playing soldier with a very large fence? Historians still debate whether certain stretches of the wall were ever truly strategic. Some were constructed more for morale or symbolic intimidation than defense. But nobody tells you that when you're holding a shaky spear at hour 2 of a shift that will last until your bones forget what warm feels like. You pass the time how you can. You talk to yourself. You try to memorize cloud shapes. You invent new breathing patterns. You consider writing poetry. You abandon that thought. You try again. One of the bricks near your elbow is slightly smoother than the others. You run your fingers over it. Someone long before you scratched something into it. Liang Chinese letter. A name maybe, a date or a code, or boredom from another century whispering back. The wind rises a little. The flags, faded and forgotten, snap faintly above your head. You wonder if the Emperor even knows this section of the wall exists. You wonder if you exist. Your shift has just begun. It's the second hour now, or the seventh, or maybe the 12th. You've stopped checking. Time on the wall moves differently. It stretches, like wet rice dough, into a shape that doesn't snap back. The sun's still up, but you swear it hasn't moved in hours. Maybe it's broken. You shift your weight from one foot to the other. The stones under you are uneven, worn down by generations of boots just like yours, some more alert, some more asleep. You start counting the bricks in the battlement out of desperation. 38, 39, 40, 40, nope, that one's cracked in half, start over. You sigh and the wind steals it. There's no one around, no traders, no soldiers. Not even a local goat. You squint toward the horizon and see what might be a hut, or a bush, or an illusion born of too much sun and not enough excitement. You wave at it anyway, just in case it's a fellow human. It does not wave back. The wind here isn't gentle. It's the kind that doesn't just blow, it peels. It strips bark, frays rope, makes even solid stone whisper over time. It whistles through the arrow slits like it's practicing a sad song, and if you close your eyes, you almost imagine it's someone humming. Almost. Mainstream fact. Garrison life on the Great Wall was notoriously isolating. Soldiers were often conscripted peasants, stationed for years in outposts days away from any town, sometimes with no direct commander nearby. Desertion was common. So were hallucinations, loneliness, and stone-talking syndrome, not an official diagnosis, but a well-documented phenomenon in later military records. You're not there yet, but you are naming the rocks, that one near your foot. That's Big Lumpy, the chipped one by the tower corner. Sheila, you don't know why, it just feels right. There's a short flight of stairs that descends to a narrow corridor leading under the tower. You take it just to move. Just to feel something shift besides your own thoughts. The stairs creak, everything creaks, including your knees. Inside the tower, it's dark. A slit of light slices across the floor like a blade. You notice scratch marks on the wall, lines, maybe tally marks. You count. 72. Someone was either keeping track of days or of how many times they'd thought about leaving. You add one more mark. Why not? Back outside, the view is exactly the same as when you left it. The wind is exactly as annoying. Your armor pinches in exactly the same spot. You've never felt so simultaneously alive and irrelevant. And yet, there's a strange peace in it. Out here, the world is small. Just you, the bricks, and the sky. The urgency of city life fades. There's no coin to earn, no merchant shouting, no overseer barking orders. You don't even have anyone to argue with. You think maybe this is what enlightenment feels like. Then you remember you skipped breakfast. Still, in this odd silence, there's a rhythm. Your boots against stone. The flap of the flag, the gust of wind. Even your own breath becomes part of the structure, like the wall is borrowing you for a little while. Fringe tidbit. Some scholars believe that long-term guards on the wall began developing bricking rituals, strange habits like tapping certain stones 3 times before starting a shift or whispering goodnight to the east-facing rampart. It wasn't superstition, it was loneliness ritualized. You check the horizon again, still nothing. You feel a brief pang of disappointment and then immediately feel guilty for wishing something might happen. Not an invasion, exactly. Just a bird, a lost traveler, a dust devil with personality. But no, just wind and stone. You glance down and realize you've been rubbing the same patch of wall for minutes without noticing. There is no drama here. There are no battles. Only you and the most boring guard duty in the Empire's vast, relentless history. And you're only just getting started. The sun begins to sink, not dramatically, but reluctantly, as if it, too, finds this place tedious. The light stretches across the stones in long, sleepy shadows, and the wind takes on a colder edge. You shuffle in place, listening to the creak of your armor and the occasional rattle of a loose tile overhead. You don't even bother pretending to stay alert anymore. There's no one out there. There hasn't been all day. That's when you notice the loose stone in the far corner of the watchtower. It's subtle, just a small wedge, the kind you've seen a dozen times already. But this one has scrape marks around the edges, like someone pried it loose repeatedly. You nudge it with your boot, it wobbles. You pry it the rest of the way free and discover, tucked neatly behind it, a scroll small, wrapped in oiled cloth to keep it dry, bound with string. No wax seal, no name, your heart skips. Treasure, a hidden map. Some secret about a long-forgotten invasion. No, it's a letter, written in faded, careful ink. Simple strokes, probably from a soldier. A very, very bored one. You start reading. To whoever ends up in this cursed tower next. Congratulations, you've been forgotten by an empire. Excellent start. I was stationed here 6 months ago. At least, I think it's 6. My water clock broke last week, and I lost count after day 30, maybe longer. The tone is dry, even sarcastic. You like this guy already. Nothing ever happens here. Not a writer, not a whisper. Sometimes I wonder if we're guarding a wall, or if the wall is guarding us from reality, from usefulness, from ever seeing another face. The letter is part diary, part confession, part resignation, mainstream fact. Desertion on remote parts of the Great Wall was common enough that several dynasties had to implement strict punishment systems. Some outposts even nailed sandals to the gate, upside down, as a warning to anyone thinking of walking off. There used to be another guard here. Lou, he left, no note, just vanished one morning. I think he walked north, chased by boredom more than bandits. You pause, you didn't hear anything about a Lou. I almost left, too. But I stayed to finish this. I wanted someone to know this place exists, that I existed. That someone stood here, night after night, staring at the same stupid hill and wondering if time had stopped. There's a section smudged by dampness, rain maybe, or a tear, or both. If you found this, please do one thing, carve your name somewhere, even if it's just a mark, even if no one remembers it later. Let the stones remember. You fold the letter gently and tuck it back behind the brick. It doesn't feel right to keep it. It belongs to the wall now. Fringe tidbit. Some remote watchtowers have dozens of similar hidden notes, never officially archived, but discovered by restoration teams centuries later. Some are just drawings, some are records of meals, one simply read, still nothing. You sit with your back against the parapet now, arms draped loosely around your knees. The sky is orange, the chill deepens. And you wonder if you'll write your own letter someday. If someone else, another weary, underfed, mildly sarcastic guard, will find your words in 100 years and feel slightly less alone. The tower creaks again, or maybe it sighs. You can't tell anymore. You pat the stone gently. Good letter, you whisper. Then you stand. Because the sky is fading, the night is coming, and there's still a whole lot of nothing to stand here and protect. The clouds have started forming again, those slow, lazy ones that drag their bellies across the northern sky like they have nowhere in particular to be. You lean forward on the parapet, cheek pressed against your forearm, watching them drift. Big one, thin one shaped vaguely like a sheep that gave up halfway through. This is what your life has become, analyzing sky fluff. You've been up here long enough that you've run out of interesting thoughts, so you invent a new game, cloud math. 1 point for every cloud that looks like food. 2 points if it reminds you of someone you knew back in the capital. -3 points if it looks like your commander, because you're trying to relax. Thank you very much. That big one. Definitely a dumpling. That long thin one, a fish on a stick. You are, it turns out, very hungry. Counting clouds may seem childish, but it has a long, proud history among the underoccupied. Ancient farmers, medieval monks. Watchtower guards with nothing else to do. You are in good, bored company. Mainstream fact. In Tang and early Song dynasties, it was not uncommon for garrison soldiers to keep informal weather logs, often just doodles or short poems scratched into wall plaster. Some even developed personal cloud omens. Flat clouds mean dry rations, or a sky like rice paper means no visitors. You decide to join this tradition with your own notebook. Page 1, Cloud 1, Ambitious Cabbage. Possibly Cabbage General. Fringe tidbit, there's a recorded entry from a Ming soldier in 1542 that reads, "Today the clouds were shaped like ducks. One of them mocked me." Scholars still debate whether this was metaphor or sleep deprivation. You try sketching one cloud but end up with a blob that looks like a boot melting in the sun. You label it Dignity Day 9. You sit back and admire your work. Not bad, not good either. But then again, neither is the rest of your job. The sky shifts again. A sudden gust pushes a new cluster of clouds toward you, tall, fast-moving, unfamiliar shapes. You narrow your eyes. For a moment, just a moment, one looks like a horse mid-gallop. Your pulse quickens. Could it be? Riders. You stand, squint, adjust your helmet, knock your knee against a loose brick and lean forward with intense focus. And then the cloud dissolves. No hooves, no enemy scouts, just vapor and imagination. Still, your heart stays elevated for a while, a kind of phantom alertness, the same way you sometimes feel your name being called when no one's around. The brain, starved for stimulus, invents little jolts to stay entertained. You sit again, shift your weight, realize your leg is asleep, and so you return to your clouds. You notice something interesting. The ones that move slower are easier to track, but harder to name. The ones that move fast, trickier to catch, but full of personality. You begin assigning them ranks. That big flat one, Commander Bao. That weird twisty one, definitely a thief. The tiny one trying to catch up, Rookie. This is your world now, a sky full of cloud soldiers. You, their only audience. You find yourself softly narrating their progress aloud. You give them dialogue. You begin composing a quiet, slow-paced opera about their rise and fall. You start humming the theme song. You are, in short, losing it, but in a very organized way. And still, no alarms, no signals, no messengers. Just the quiet drama of air and water overhead and the ancient bricks beneath your boots. Somewhere deep in the wall, a crack expands by the width of a fingernail. The wind doesn't notice. Neither do you. You watch the clouds until night eats their shapes, and even then you imagine them, drifting in the dark, still playing out your little soap opera overhead. You are, after all, the only audience, and tomorrow, you'll count again, it's morning. You think the sky has brightened into that milky gray that never quite qualifies as sunrise, and everything looks identical to last night. You glance over the parapet, no activity, no messengers, no birds. Even the wind seems to have lost interest in this place and wandered off to more exciting stretches of wall. The morning isn't loud, it isn't even new, it's just there, like the background hum of a lamp you forgot was on. You stretch your arms until something in your back clicks like a bamboo fan. You pretend it was satisfying. It wasn't. You check your rations. One strip of dried something, beef, yam, wood. And a soft rice cake that now qualifies legally as a rock. You gnaw on it anyway. It tastes like dust and resolve. Mainstream fact. Soldiers assigned to remote sections of the wall often had to provide their own food or trade with nearby villages. In especially bleak postings, they subsisted on foraged roots, salted greens, and a kind of hard cake that could survive a siege, an avalanche, or blunt force trauma. You imagine writing a food review, brick-like mouthfeel. Notes of regret, excellent shelf life, pairs well with despair. You sip from your water skin. It tastes slightly of leather and distant sadness. Somewhere on the horizon, the sun finally dares peek through, just barely, just enough to throw long shadows across the battlement. But instead of warming you, it only seems to highlight the infinite sameness of your surroundings. There's a fringe story passed around garrisons like this one. A man who once stood his full 3-month shift without once changing facial expression. He was awarded a medal, then forgot what it was for. The guards called him the statue. Some say he still stands, somewhere beyond the mountains, unmoving, unimpressed. You check your reflection in the blade of your spear. The face that looks back at you is puffy, wind-burned, and slightly skeptical of your choices in life. You make eye contact with yourself and mutter, "This is fine. Time does something strange now." Every time you glance at the sun, you think, "Surely it's noon." Then, no, just earlier than before. Then, wait, is it going backward? You walk a loop around the tower. You count bricks. You hum a song you've invented just this morning called Ode to Breakfast That Isn't. It has no melody and 3 verses, all of which are just the word noodle whispered dramatically. The morning drags not because it's uneventful, but because it's flat, emotionless, a beige stretch of time with no corners. You feel like someone pressed pause on the empire and forgot to unpause it again. A pigeon lands on the wall. You gasp. A pigeon. Actual movement. You feel absurdly excited. It looks at you with a deep, judgmental gaze. Then poops and leaves. You begin to suspect the wall is not here to guard the nation. The wall is here to observe you. Some stones feel warmer than others. You lay your hand on one, hoping for comfort, but all it gives is a faint echo of the night's cold. Still, you find yourself leaning against it. It doesn't object. You name it Old Zhang. You speak to Old Zhang for a while. Tell him about your childhood, your first failed archery test. The time you fell in love with a merchant's daughter who thought your name was Lin for 6 months and you didn't correct her. Old Zhang is an excellent listener. Eventually, the sun rises high enough to cast your own shadow squarely at your feet. You realize with some disappointment that this is the most progress anything has made all day. You sigh again. The breeze carries it east, and then a sound, far off, a rustle, a hoof. No, it's just your own stomach reminding you it's very unimpressed by your breakfast. You give it a firm pat, like a commander steadying a battalion. Still nothing on the horizon. You begin composing a haiku, morning again here. Brick dreams and wind for breakfast. I am the silence. It's bad, you love it, and the day stretches on. It's sometime after midday, but the sun doesn't seem to care. It hovers above you like a tired lantern, neither blazing nor fading, just suspended, unhelpfully neutral. You press your palm against the stone wall. It's warm now, but not in a comforting way, more like the warmth of something that's been absorbing stories for too long. It hums beneath your fingers, not literally, at least not at first, but there's something there. A vibration, a memory, or maybe just your blood sinking to the rhythm of silence. You whisper, half mocking, "You remember things, don't you?" The wall says nothing, but it doesn't feel empty either. Mainstream fact. Portions of the Great Wall date back to the 7th century BCE, with layers built, destroyed, rebuilt, extended, and stitched together by successive dynasties, each leaving behind different brick types, mortar formulas, and little historical quirks like forgotten tower numbers or mismatched crenellations. In other words, this wall has layers, literal and metaphorical. You tap a brick twice, then again, then once more. It's pointless. You do it anyway, because something's shifted. You feel watched not in a sinister way, more like how a tree watches a swing long after the child is gone. Patient, familiar, slightly judgmental. The wall, you realize, is not just a wall, it's a record keeper. A memory palace disguised as architecture. And you're not the first to talk to it. Fringe tidbit. In a recently restored section near Gansu, restorers uncovered faint graffiti etched in charcoal beneath old plaster. Notes, names, tiny calendars, the occasional haiku. One read simply, "She left, but the bricks remember her steps." You step back and scan the length of the wall, stretching in both directions. It undulates gently, rising and falling like a sleeping dragon's spine. You imagine it breathing, not heavily, just enough to remind you it's here, that it was always here. You think of the men who laid these bricks, stone by stone, lifting and placing and repeating until their hands forgot softness. Some did it under imperial orders, others under punishment, others for rations or out of some ill-defined sense of purpose, all of them anonymous, and all of them somewhere still here. You press your ear to the wall, you expect silence. Instead, you hear wind, footsteps that might be yours. A faint scraping, possibly a squirrel, possibly time itself dragging its nails. You sit down and speak out loud, not to yourself, to the wall. You tell it what you had for breakfast, a mistake, how many clouds you saw, 22, 3 of which were probably hallucinated, and how you've started naming stones. You confess that you feel less like a guard and more like the wall's caretaker. Like you're not watching the outside world, you're watching it. You wonder, does the wall get lonely? Then, without meaning to, you whisper, do you remember me? The wind picks up just a little, you smile, because maybe that's a yes. The day passes slowly, but your thoughts don't race anymore. You don't count bricks, you don't dread the shift, you just sit and listen. Somewhere deep in the mortar, stories sleep, and you begin to believe that if you stay quiet long enough, they might start talking. You're leaning on your spear now, eyes half-lidded, the kind of tired where blinking feels like a negotiation with gravity. The sky has melted into that pale, indifferent blue. Even the wind seems too bored to move, and then something shifts. Out there near the edge of your vision, far off across the flatlands, a flicker, a movement. You straighten slowly, trying not to breathe too loud, squinting so hard your eyebrows try to crawl into your helmet. It's a figure, you think. Or a rock or a mirage, or nothing. You blink, it's still there. Maybe it's shaped like a person, or maybe a tall tree with ambitions. Whatever it isn't moving, just standing, watching, facing this direction, hard to tell. Distance plays tricks out here. You don't panic. Panic would be a relief. You engage. The training you barely remember kicks in. You reach for your horn, then you pause. Because if you sound the alarm and it turns out to be a bush with attitude, you'll be the joke of 5 garrisons in every direction. Still, you can't ignore it. Mainstream fact. False sightings were a recurring issue for wall guards. Recorded incidents show dozens of phantom scouts being reported, most later explained as mirages, stray animals, or reflections from distant fires. One record from the Ming Dynasty notes, 3 men were punished for raising alarm over a wandering goat. You lift the old brass scope from the peg on the tower wall. It's rusty. It smells like disappointment. You peer through it, carefully adjusting the tiny lens with the cracked leather strap. There it is again, a shape, standing, not moving, but it's not clearer. If anything, it's more ambiguous now, like it wants to be seen but not identified. A visual shrug, you lower the scope, you breathe, you look again, gone. You let out a long sigh, then laugh softly, half relief, half embarrassment. You weren't hallucinating, probably. You walk to the far end of the parapet to get a better angle. The view is empty, the ground is still, the hills are flat. The world has returned to its usual scheduled nothingness. Fringe detail. Some soldiers along the wall believed the land itself played games with vision, especially during the siesta hours between midday and twilight. They'd call it the whispering hour, when your eyes couldn't be trusted, and the wind liked to walk on 2 legs. You sit back down and pat the stone next to you. Did you see it, old Zhang? Old Zhang, ever faithful, does not respond. But now you're awake again, alert, listening. Your body, which had grown sluggish with repetition, now hums with the buzz of uncertainty. What if it was someone? What if they're still there? What if you just failed the one test this tower's had in a decade? You shake the thoughts off, not because they aren't valid, but because there's nothing to do about it now, and the shadows are growing longer. So you lean back into the brick, place your palm against the sun-warmed mortar, and let your breath settle. Still, every few minutes, your eyes flick back to that spot. The horizon, the maybe, because now the boredom has a crack in it, a ripple, a question, and sometimes that's worse than nothing. It's nearly evening now. The sun is bleeding slowly into the mountains, and the wall under your boots glows faintly orange, like it's embarrassed by how long it's been doing nothing all day. The wind is back, playful, hungry, and your stomach reminds you with some enthusiasm that it's been hours since you last gnawed on anything remotely edible. Which brings us to the rations. You reach into the faded satchel at your side and withdraw what's become the highlight of your entire garrison experience. A stiff, unyielding brick of salt-dried mung bean cake. You give it a respectful nod. It does not nod back, you crack it in half. A piece flies off and nearly takes your tooth with it. You chew like someone attempting diplomacy with gravel. It's awful. It's glorious. Mainstream fact. Standard wall rations during the Ming Dynasty included dried legumes, rice flour cakes, salted greens, pickled roots, and fermented tofu, designed more for shelf life than joy. Soldiers often received emergency cakes so dense that they doubled as makeshift projectiles, and occasionally table legs. You compose a haiku, dry cake, sky like stone, even the rats won't touch this. Still, I eat with pride. Fringe tidbit, one preserved ration found near the Jayayuguan Pass had teeth marks, and the words, "I miss soup," etched faintly into its side. A small museum now displays it next to a cracked rice bowl under the proud label. The meal that waited 500 years. You sit cross-legged now, back against the parapet, watching the last rays of sunlight smear across the valley while you nibble on your culinary concrete. It's the first real event you've had in hours. The textures are varied, chalk, bark, regret, but it fills your stomach just enough to allow your brain to stop screaming. And in this lull, you begin to feel content. Yes, content. This food is terrible. You've renamed your boots. You are probably 80% dust by now, but there's something oddly calming about having absolutely nothing expected of you except existing, guarding, chewing, watching the day close slowly, like a heavy door with no handle. You pull out your logbook, just a thin scrap of parchment tucked between bricks, and record today's notable events. Counted 7 clouds. One pigeon, extremely disrespectful. Mysterious maybe person, still undecided. Brick 874, still most emotionally available. Dinner, 610, excellent crunch, possible hallucination of cinnamon. You pause and add one more line. Mood, meditative with light seasoning. A breeze nudges your shoulder. You interpret it as applause. Somewhere out there, the empire lives on, markets bustling, scrolls being written, decisions made by people who don't know you're up here, watching over a piece of wall no one ever seems to attack or even visit. And yet you are loyal. You guard the silence. You respect the snack. There's a story told around barracks, possibly apocryphal, about a guard who, after 10 years on the wall, invented over 30 culinary uses for dried bean cakes. Toasted, boiled, soaked in wine, shaved into powder. One version even involves building a flute out of the hollow core of a particularly brittle batch. Scholars remain baffled. You aspire to this level of madness. The sun slips behind the ridge now. Shadows deepen. Your brick friend Old Zhang cools beneath your arm. You unwrap the last bit of rations. This one has a bonus. A single pickled plum tucked inside like treasure in a tomb. You laugh not because it's funny, but because it's absurdly luxurious. You savor it, slowly, and for just a second the wind tastes sweet. You wake up the next morning with a start not from a noise but from nothing at all. No footfalls, no gate creaking, no voice calling, next shift. Just light, cold and direct, crawling down your collar like an uninvited bug. You blink, sit up, look toward the path where the replacement is supposed to arrive. It's empty, again. This is the third time your shift change hasn't happened, and you're starting to wonder if someone, somewhere, forgot to update the imperial schedule. Mainstream fact. Delayed rotations weren't unusual in remote towers of the Great Wall. Weather, terrain, and sheer administrative confusion often led to lone guards pulling multi-day stretches with no relief. In one report from the late Ming period, a guard was forgotten for 12 days. When found, he was perfectly fine, just deeply committed to stone carving his own promotion. You stretch your back with a groan. The wall creaks with you as if in solidarity. You shuffle toward the edge and squint at the road again. Nothing, just rocks, wind, your own increasingly vocal internal monologue. You mutter, "They're late." Then again louder, just in case the universe needs to hear it. "They are late." The wall doesn't argue. You return to your usual loop, 2 laps along the battlement, a small detour to stare meaningfully into the distance, followed by breakfast, which is today's last piece of hard cake, and your new post-breakfast ritual. Inspecting the arrival spot. You even drew a chalk line yesterday, a "have they been here" marker. It's undisturbed. You sigh and update your logbook. Day, no one came. Brick 874, still emotionally dependable. Saw another pigeon, think it was the same one, starting to suspect conspiracy. You try to joke about it, but there's a creeping tension now, a thin, curling strand of dread at the base of your spine, because what if no one is coming? What if this section of the wall has simply fallen off the Empire's radar? Fringe tidbit, there are tales not widely accepted by scholars of ghost towers along the wall, not haunted necessarily, just forgotten. Entire garrisons lost due to clerical errors or conflict elsewhere. Soldiers who stayed because they believed the rules still mattered, even when no one was enforcing them. Stories say some kept their posts until the food ran out and still stayed. You remember something your commander said once before you were posted here. If no one relieves you, you are not off duty. You're just more on duty. You didn't think much of it at the time. Now it echoes with the authority of prophecy. You pace. You rehearse the conversation you'll have when the replacement finally shows up. Nice of you to arrive. You missed my birthday. You are now responsible for my sanity and one adopted brick. But that assumes they will show. And what if they don't? You glance at the small iron bell tucked beside the signal fire pit. You consider ringing it. Once, twice, 3 times. But for what? There's no one out there. Instead, you sit, quietly, the wall warm beneath you, the wind low, carrying the scent of dust and distance. You pull out the hidden letter again, the one from the guard before you. You reread the last line. "If you found this, please do one thing. Carve your name somewhere." You nod slowly, reach into your satchel, pull out your dagger. You find a bare spot beside the parapet, scratch gently at the stone until it gives. Then in small, tired strokes, you write, "Still here, still waiting. Me." And then you line back and wait, just in case. It's late afternoon now, though honestly, it could be mid-morning, early evening, or the 17th day of your slow descent into becoming a moss-covered wall ornament. Time here doesn't march forward, it loops. It hums in circles like a lazy bee, and you've officially run out of things to talk about to yourself, so you turn to brick 874. He's a good brick, squat, slightly cracked on the left edge. A little warmer than the others during the day, and never judgmental when you monologue for too long. You pat him fondly. "Right," you say, "time to begin your diary." You scratch your chin and open your logbook, flipping past all the pigeon updates and beancake reviews. A fresh page, clean, ready. Journal of Brick 874, Watchtower Companion, unofficial listener, possessor of excellent surface texture. Day 1. Brick seems indifferent, refuses to answer questions. May be shy. Day 2, I told him about my first love. He didn't interrupt once. A good friend. Day 3, shared a bean cake crumb with him. It disappeared. Possibly due to gravity, possibly his own will. You chuckle softly. It's not a sane laugh, but it's honest. Mainstream fact. There are genuine examples in Great Wall history of soldiers carving names, dates, or even full-length poetry onto specific bricks. One restored section near Badiling bears the faint lines. Liang watched this horizon for 5 years. It never blinked. You wonder if Liang also gave his bricks names, or failings, or backstories. You look at 874 now and decide he once served in a palace floor before being reassigned to the wall. He resents it, but silently. You respect that. You sketch a little face beside your entry, 2 dots. One straight line, stoic, perfect. The wind picks up. You shield your page, then glance around. Just you, the stones, the sky, and your entirely invented social circle of architectural companions. You lean back and begin composing a lullaby for brick 874. Something slow and sad and surprisingly catchy. Little brick in row 13. Keeper of my thoughts unseen. If I should fall or float away, please stay right here another day. It's terrible, you sing it twice. The sun casts its long shadow across your back as you talk to brick 874 about your childhood village, the one with the plum trees and the noisy neighbor who kept ducks but pretended they were geese for reasons still unclear. You tell him about your first day of training, the way your armor chafed, the way you stood too stiffly and passed out during inspection. You think brick 874 appreciates the vulnerability. You can tell by how evenly he holds the light. Fringe tidbit. Some soldiers along the wall are believed to have written coded letters into mortar with vinegar or soot, brief messages that could only be seen under certain light or heat. No one knows how many of these stories are true, but the idea, the possibility, it makes the wall feel alive, not haunted, just watchful. You tap the brick twice like a secret knock. You whisper, "If you remember me kindly." Then you laugh again because you know it's ridiculous, and yet somehow it feels necessary. You check the path again, still no replacement, no rider, not even that impolite pigeon. Just you and brick 874, holding the empire together in silence. You make one last note before dusk. He's still listening. That's more than I can say for most. And with that, you lean against your old friend and let your eyes drift half-closed. Because in a world where nothing happens, sometimes the most important thing you can do is talk to a brick. Something has changed. You can't say exactly when it started, sometime between the pigeon and the last bean cake, probably, but you've begun hearing things. Not voices, not words, just tones, rhythms, faint patterns inside the wind. Echoes you didn't notice before. You press your hand to the wall again. It's cooler now, the sun long gone. Night is creeping in, painting the mortar in soft hues of ash and blue. And the wall is whispering. It begins with a vibration, not in the stone but in your chest. Like a sound felt more than heard, a heartbeat slow and steady that doesn't match your own. You step back, look around, still no one, just you, and the wall. And brick 874, who now feels like he's in on something you're not. You sit, cross-legged, hands in your lap, back straight. "Okay," you say, "tell me." And then it does, not in language, not even in thought. More like impressions, memories pressed into stone by centuries of boots, backs, and breath. You feel a woman here once, handing up baskets of water during a drought. A boy who snuck into a tower to escape chores and fell asleep against the signal drum. A man who carved the word "free" behind the mortar just because no one said he could. Mainstream fact. Researchers restoring sections of the Great Wall have occasionally discovered etchings far below eye level, on undersides of parapets, inside crevices, places soldiers could only reach if they were hiding or desperate to leave a trace. And then you feel the fear, a tremble deep and old, a stampede of feet, the whoosh of a lit signal torch, someone shouting, "They're coming," a rush of breath, a pull of bowstring, the heavy thud of something ending. It's not your memory. But for a moment you live it, then it fades, you're back on your tower, with your spear, your crumbs, and your bricks, and the sound is gone. You blink. Was that real? You could write it down. You could record every detail, describe the flash of panic, the cool rush of battle readiness, the warmth of someone's hand grabbing your shoulder. But who would believe you, the other guards, when they finally show up, your commander? He'd squint and ask if you'd eaten spoiled rice. Fringed tidbit. A recovered scroll from the Ming era includes a report from a soldier who claimed the wall spoke of battle one night during a sandstorm. He was reassigned shortly afterward to bridge maintenance. You decide to write it anyway. Log entry night, heard the wall whisper, felt memories, not mine, not a dream, something old, something loud. If anyone finds this, I'm still sane. Probably, or I've gone exactly the kind of mad this place was built for. You sit in silence, listening again. The wall doesn't repeat itself. It doesn't need to. It said what it had to say, and now it watches you again. As it has watched everyone, you curl up near the warmest corner of the tower, arms around your knees, breath visible in the night air. Your eyelids grow heavy. Before sleep takes you, you whisper, "Good night, wall, thanks for talking." And in the hush between dreams, you think you hear a reply, a creak, a sigh, or just the sound of a story folding itself closed. Tonight, the stars arrive on time. You don't know what you expected, clouds maybe, a haze. But instead, the sky above you blooms open, wide and perfectly clear. It's the kind of night where the stars don't twinkle, they lean in. You've never seen them so sharp before, like someone cleaned the heavens with a silk cloth. You lean back against the parapet, arms crossed, face tilted skyward. Even brick 874 seems unusually reflective tonight. There are no orders, no noises, no wind. Just a dome of quiet light hanging above your head like a lantern you didn't ask for but desperately needed. And then you hum. You don't mean to. It just comes out. A soft, half-formed melody that loops without logic. Not a tune you know, not something your mother sang, just sound. The kind of low, wandering thing that comes from deep inside when you forget you're being watched. It's your no-name song. You hum to pass the time. You hum because the silence is too beautiful to stay unbroken. You hum because there's something comforting about hearing your own voice return to you, softly, by the stones. Mainstream fact. Lullabies and field chants were often improvised by isolated soldiers on the wall, particularly during long winter postings. These spontaneous tunes, often wordless, helped mark time and calm nerves. They were never written down. But sometimes they were remembered. You try adding lyrics. Stars don't blink here. Bricks don't dream. I just hum. So I don't scream. It's not a hit, but it's yours. You hum it again, and this time the notes fall more confidently into place. You tap your spear against your boot in rhythm. The sound echoes slightly, then vanishes into the valley below. For a brief moment, you imagine a voice joining yours. A second verse, a harmony, maybe from the tower beyond the next bend of the wall, maybe from the past. A soldier like you, equally tired, equally alone, humming the same made-up melody 100 years ago to the same stars. Fringe tidbit, in a tower unearthed near the Gobi Edge, archaeologists discovered faint musical notations carved on a wooden beam, simple pentatonic lines believed to be fragments of a soldier's personal tune. No words. Just pitch markers, a little hum captured in splinters. You try changing the tempo. Slower now. The tune starts to sound like a lullaby you should remember, but don't. The kind that ends in a whisper, not a crescendo. The kind that holds you in place more gently than duty ever could. You sing it to brick 874. He seems to appreciate it. Then you sing it again, this time to the wall, to the soldiers who stood here before, to the sky. To no one, you find yourself smiling, not out of joy, but out of some strange, deep peace, because tonight nothing is broken, nothing is lost. The sky is clear, the wall is steady, and the loneliness feels melodic. You hum until your throat dries. You hum until your body eases back against the stone. You hum until even the melody forgets where it came from. Then silence returns, but it feels different now. Not empty, not bored. Just full of echoes that don't need answers. And above you, the stars hum back. Dawn is not yet here, but the sky has begun to pale at its edges, like ink being slowly diluted in cold water. The stars have blinked out one by one, and you're perched on the parapet again, your legs dangling over the edge, boots scuffed from pacing, your back sore but somehow thankful. You're just about to resume your ritual morning grumble when it happens. A streak, small, fast, sharp-winged, a swallow, your heart thumps. It flutters across the sky like a flick of black ink, dipping low over the wall, circling once and then gone. You blink, surprised by how deeply it affects you. After days of seeing only clouds, bricks, and ghosts of memory, this bird feels like a revelation, a miracle, a tiny, winged punctuation mark in a sentence that hasn't ended for far too long. You stand, eyes scanning the horizon, waiting for it to return. It doesn't, and yet the space it leaves behind feels somehow charged, mainstream fact. In Chinese folklore, the swallow is a symbol of good fortune, renewal, and news from afar. Soldiers stationed in remote areas often considered their appearance a favorable omen. Some believed a swallow's presence meant their shift was about to end, or that a letter from home was on the way. You look down the path again, still no relief. Still no horse, no rider, no boots echoing on the stone steps. But for some reason, the air feels different, as if the bird carried a piece of outside with it and dropped it accidentally into your lungs. You sit again. Think about swallows. You try to remember the last time you saw one. Was it in your village? Thatched roof, sun-warmed stones, your little brother chasing one with a spoon for reasons he never explained? Or did you imagine that? You check your logbook, add an entry, saw a swallow, fast, confident, possibly imaginary, would like to believe otherwise. You sketch a little V-shaped bird beside the note. You are not an artist. It looks more like an upside-down fork. Still, it flaps in your mind. Fringed tidbit. Some tower guards used to fold paper swallows, crude origami during slow shifts. They'd write messages on the wings and toss them into the wind, not to deliver, but to release. A kind of ritual exhale. You consider trying it yourself, but paper is scarce and you've grown oddly fond of your logbook. Instead, you stare at the spot where the bird vanished. You imagine where it's flying now, past towers. Over villages, dipping down into courtyards, back up into rafters, whispering to the world that you're still here, perched on a forgotten wall, watching the sky for stories. Maybe someone else saw the same swallow. Maybe it's a messenger between lonely people, collecting sighs and songs, stitching them into some secret sky map that only birds can read. You close your eyes, try to hear its wings in the breeze, and for a moment you do, not flapping. Not fluttering, but gliding weightless on a current too quiet to disturb the bricks. You open your eyes again. The wall still stands. You still wait, but now at least the sky is a little less empty. The afternoon creeps in slow, thick with the kind of golden haze that makes everything shimmer slightly at the edges. You're slouched against the same corner of the tower, your feet dusty, your shoulders stiff, your brain caught somewhere between memory and resignation. Oh, and then, footsteps. You freeze. It's faint at first. A rhythmic crunch on stone, not wind, not birds, footsteps, real, measured, coming closer. You scramble upright, knocking your helmet askew, heart thumping like you haven't felt in days. You grab your spear, but mostly for show. Your hands are shaking in the way that says something is actually happening. You peer over the parapet, and there he is, a figure, walking slowly up the path from the south, cloaked, hood up, alone. Each step echoes like a drum beat in the back of your skull. You want to call out, but your voice catches. You wave instead, awkwardly, like a child who just learned how arms work. No response. He keeps walking. You lean farther forward. He's close now, just 100 paces from the tower gate. Still, he doesn't wave back. Mainstream fact. Couriers and rotating garrison replacements were supposed to announce themselves with a call, a signal whistle, or at least a flash of banner. But in remote areas, it wasn't uncommon for replacements to arrive wordlessly, silent, exhausted, or wary of ambush. You rush down the steps to meet him. The gate creaks open. He stops, close now, too close. You expect a smile. A nod, a sorry I'm late. But there's nothing, just stillness. His hood hides his eyes. His face is shadowed. His boots are covered in dust, like he's walked from some impossible edge of the empire. Shift's yours, you say, voice too loud. Still no reply. You force a laugh. Hope you like silence. She's been talkative lately. He raises his head just slightly, and now you see something. Not his expression, not his eyes, but a tiredness, bone deep. As if he's carried not just travel, but decades, or centuries. You feel yourself shiver, not from fear, from recognition. Fringe tidbit, there are whispered tales among long-serving guards of the silent ones, soldiers who never spoke, never blinked, and never seemed to age. Some say they were ghosts, others say they were the wall itself, come to check in on its watchmen. You break the tension with a shrug, step aside, I'll get my things. But something stops you. He hasn't moved, he hasn't breathed. You glance behind you, half expecting Brick 874 to offer advice. The tower feels heavy now, not in weight, in memory. You turn back, he's gone, you step outside. The path is empty, no footprints, no sound. No figure walking away, nothing. You stare for a long time, eyes burning, and then very quietly you close the gate, climb back to your post, sit beside your favorite brick. You don't write anything in the log. What would you say? Instead, you lean your head back against the stone and murmur, if you're coming again tomorrow, just bring better snacks. The wind laughs with you, or maybe at you, or maybe not at all, but somehow it's easier to breathe now. Because someone reached you today, real or not, present or imagined, and for the first time in days you're not alone. There's no mourning this time, no birdsong, no creak of the gate, just light, everywhere. Soft and weightless like fog made of memory, you open your eyes slowly, not because you've been sleeping, but because something inside you finally allowed it. You're still here, on the wall, on your post, or maybe you're not. The stones feel warmer now, familiar like skin. The wind doesn't bite, it sighs like a friend who's been waiting for you to notice. You don't bother checking the path anymore. There's no one coming, there's no one needed. You glance at Brick 874, you smile. Morning, you say. He doesn't reply, of course, but he doesn't have to. His quiet presence has been your constant in this strange, stretching span of time. You wonder if someone else once talked to him too, if someone else carved a mark, hummed a tune, whispered their goodbyes. You touch the mark you left beside the parapet, still here, still waiting. Me, and then you pause. Because something's changed. Your name isn't yours anymore. You try to recall the day you arrived, the exact date, the orders, the route. You know you had them once. You know there was a commander, a camp, a farewell wave. But the memory now is soft, smudged, like chalk on wet stone. You know the wall. You remember every crack in its mortar, every brick that's shifted beneath your boot. You remember the rhythm of your breath against it, the echo of your hum, the weight of stories pressed deep into the stones. You are not just standing on the wall anymore. You are part of it. Mainstream fact. Some modern scholars believe that forgotten garrisons were absorbed into local lore not through records, but through their silence. Their watch continued long after their names were lost. The wall itself became their gravestone, their diary, their continuation. You rise slowly, walk the perimeter. Everything is exactly as it's always been. The wind brushes your cheek like an old friend. The bricks seem to tilt toward you ever so slightly. The path below is still empty, and yet you feel no urgency, no need for relief. You've left nothing behind. Or rather, what you were is already here. You find your logbook again. The pages are worn, some crumbling. You open to the last page and with the soft stub of charcoal write, "No need to replace me. I'm still watching." Then for good measure, you draw a tiny swallow, mid-flight, tail arched like a smile. You set the book beneath Brick 874. He'll keep it safe. You close your eyes, not to sleep, just to rest, just to be. And in that moment the wall exhales. The stones hold you. The wind folds around you. And far down the empire, someone wonders idly if anyone ever staffed that outpost again. You did. Maybe you still do. Maybe you always will. And now the wall is quiet. No footsteps echo down the stones. No torches flicker. No signal fire waits to be lit. Just the hush of dusk wrapped around brick and sky, as if the world has paused to exhale. You're still here, but not in the same way. Not as a name on a duty roster or a soldier awaiting relief. You're here in the way a story settles into stone, a whisper too soft to write down, but too steady to forget. Let yourself rest now. Let the slow rhythm of this place unwind the tension in your shoulders, soften your breath, and settle your mind into the quiet folds of time. The wall will hold your thoughts now. Let it. That's what it was built for: defense, yes, but also memory. Let the names fade. Let the years pass. Let the boots grow moss and the banners fall still. You did your job, you stayed, you watched, you waited. And in that simple, undramatic act, you became part of something vast. The stones remember. Your footsteps are in their rhythm now. Your breath woven into their night wind. You don't have to try anymore. The wall carries it for you. Outside, the stars rise again. Slow, quiet, familiar, and far off, just barely, just once, you hear the soft beat of a swallow's wings passing overhead. No urgency, no alarm, just movement, just song. And in the space between the last word and the next dream, you hear the lullaby of the wall, still here, still listening, still keeping watch. So rest, sentinel, sleep deep.